All right, welcome to another episode of the Ryan and Goodman podcast. I'm Jeff Goodman. He's Bob Ryan. And as you can tell, Bob, I have my Carolina Hurricanes hat on here
Yes.
as I'm now a charter member of the fan club due to my daughter, Talia, who we flew down.
Of all teams.
Yeah. I don't know how. I can't even explain how, Bob. Again,
She's not old enough to remember the Whalers.
No, she's not, but she loaned me her jersey for the game. A Svechnikov Whalers, kind of retro throwback jersey. So I wore it. I was a good dad. It's the first time I've worn. Actually, Bob, honestly, it's the first time I was able to really cheer for a game in a long, long time. Because think about it, I'm either going to NCAA, college games where I'm not cheering, or I'm going to a Celtics game where I'm not cheering, or an NBA game, but very rarely do I get to go to a game. And I was so invested because of my daughter that I felt like completely by the end of the game, and it went into overtime like every Carolina Hurricanes game does these days. By the end of the game, we got back to the hotel in Raleigh, and I was beaten down. I was so exhausted. Now, again, it was a 24-hour trip where we saw Duke, Carolina.
Yep.
Then we saw NC State yesterday morning.
Yep.
And went on a tour there. Bumped into Tyler Hansbrough, which was kind of cool.
Oh, really? What's he up to?
He got COVID this past year, and he was going to play in China. And he said, once you get COVID, China won't let you in. That's it. And they even kind of kick you out if you have COVID there. You're basically gone. You can't play again for the year. So he took the year off. He's 34, 35 years old now.
Time flies.
Amazing that Tyler Hansbrough is still not in the – if you had told me Tyler Hansbrough would not have played 15 years in the NBA.
Yeah, I thought he'd have a career. I wasn't ready to put him in the All-Star game, but I certainly thought he would be a journeyman workhorse. Yeah, I would have expected that.
By the way, the crowd in Carolina – we won't talk much hockey talk on this pod right now, but we will talk about the crowd itself. They probably had 14,000 in there out of maybe 17 or 18, whatever it holds at the PNC Arena. That place was, it was just cool to have an atmosphere because I went to the NCAA tournament. There was no atmosphere there.
It's funny you mentioned that because way back when I covered a Bruins Panthers Hurricane series, excuse me.
Yeah.
And they were trumpeting that they had the greatest crowd in the league. That was their big deal.
Really?
So I was there passing judgment on the crowd and giving it the thumbs down. It's good, but I've heard better. And oh boy.
That was very good the other night.
That didn't go over well. No, they were real. This is funny. They're still noted for that. Good for them. It's great. But I do remember saying that was a big deal to them back 12, 13 years ago, whenever the hell it was. I don't know. Could be longer than that. But
tell you what,
the Bruins, I have to look up when the Bruins played the Hurricane, and I was there.
Playoff hockey is fun to watch.
Oh, playoff hockey is tremendous. There's nothing. Hey, I'm sorry. It's a basketball podcast. I played in basketball my whole life. I played basketball. I love basketball. And there's nothing like Stanley Cup overtime is the tensest thing in sport I've ever encountered.
Yeah.
Stanley Cup overtime, anywhere, when it can end like that.
Yep.
And so often it ends when one team's having a good rush and they pepper them and they don't score, and then boom, the other way, over.
So quickly. Well, again, the Canes were done. They had a goal disallowed in the second period. Then the third period couldn't score. They get one late in the third, and next thing you know, they got the momentum and they went in overtime. And so it was fun. It was a lot of fun. That's great. Anything you can do, this with your daughter.
Oh,
especially for me, I got one kid and she's gone to college in about a year from now. So it was if I got to pull her out of school and we made it at least justified to pull her out of school where we could see some, Duke, Carolina, NC State. No. It was worth it.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, good for you. That's great, Dad. Very good. Well, we got the basketball world's been rolling along with, I think, tremendous opening of the playoffs. I really do. I think it's been fun. And between the 1-1s and there's 2 2-0s that of note. One is they should hang a white flag outside TD Garden tomorrow night rather than the game. A giant white flag and saying, okay, No mas.
Yeah, Roberto Duran. Roberto Duran style. Throw in the towel.
We're going home.
Right.
That's it.
We don't want to be embarrassed by Kyrie anymore. Like, we don't want him to come into Boston and embarrass us. Like, there's going to be nothing worse than that, Bob, when Kyrie goes for 30 plus and he's smiling and stomping all over the Celtics. Oh, it's going to be painful to watch.
All right. Well, so that, and then there's a 2-0 where I can't wait to see the fallout when the Clippers go down after, you consider that since they got good, now they were the worst franchise documented. I argue that they were the worst franchise in all major American professional sport for a 30-year period. The Sterling era was relentlessly putrid. All right, relentlessly. Yep. Then they got good. In 2015, they go to the playoffs with high hopes, and they blow a 3-1 lead. So since 2015, they have lost 2 3-1 series leads and a 2-0.
Wow.
And now this year, they lose the first 2 at home. And, it looks like disaster again. What a star-crossed franchise. I mean,
we were talking a year ago, we're all talking about, hey, can the Clippers win this thing? Can they beat the Lakers? Can they win it and be that team that, again, Kawhi's coming off winning a title in Toronto.
Yeah.
He comes home. Paul George is home. Can these guys team up and beat LeBron and AD? Not only do they not beat them, the Lakers win it, right? The Clippers bow out early. Lakers win the whole thing. And now they've lost 2 at home.
Yeah, 2 at home.
Luka in Dallas. Like, really?
Yeah. Oh, no, I know. What happens afterward? You almost can't wait to find out.
Well, they got to make a move. I mean, listen, if they lose in this series, I would think something's got to be done, probably with Lawrence Frank. I would assume it goes that high, right? It goes that high. Maybe, again, are you going to get rid of Ty Lue after 1 year? I don't think so. And what other changes? You got to make roster changes, because right now your big 2 is fine, right? Kawhi and Paul George are fine. The rest of the team right now,
Kawhi did have 41 in game 2.
What's that?
Kawhi did have 41 points.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
the problem is they had
Kawhi
69 points, the 2 between them, and the other 3 starters had 14.
Yeah, you can't win that way.
So no, you can't play that way.
Well, they don't make people better. That's the big thing with Luka, right? Look at what Luka does for Tim Hardaway Jr. I mean, Tim Hardaway Jr. to me is a fringe NBA player who's putting up 25 in playoff games right now. Like, Luka makes people better. Kawhi and Paul George do not. That's the big differentiator for me.
Well, that's a big differentiator, and because I resist that terminology, but I just simply choose. It's all matter of semantics. They allow people to be there at their best. They bring out the best in people. And this all started with Bill Russell. This phrase about making people better. And what you're doing is you're enabling them to be the best of themselves. That's all right. Anyway, yes, the Luka is bird-like in that regard. This is the comparison which people are asking. Is it fair? I'm getting asked this question, as an elder statesman and a birdologist and a bird suck up and birds, and all that. And the answer is, yeah, he's the close. He has elements of Bird. The biggest difference right now, Larry had that panache. There was just a connection with the crowd. There was something about Larry. There was a swagger to a degree,
Okay, but if Luka played in Boston, wouldn't he have the same thing?
I don't know. I mean, his personality. I mean, I don't know his personality personally. I don't know what he's like when the ball's not in his hands. I have no idea. I know, but anyway.
Larry was kind of standoffish, wasn't he?
Not well. He always connected with the crowd. I can tell you that.
But off the court, did he connect with the fans? Like, he connected on the court.
Yeah.
Larry really didn't connect off the court.
He wasn't a hermit, but he didn't go out of his way to interact necessarily. No, he didn't. I agree to that.
I think Luka's got the personality. I actually think Luka's got a bigger personality than Larry. But Larry, like you said, Larry in Boston on the court at that time, just absolutely connected.
Larry, and it evolved, to where Larry actually got to a point where the game got boring and he had to spice it up for his own amusement. And I'm not making this up. But when he went to that left-hand game, you know, not that, and in a seventh game against Detroit, took a 15-foot left-hand banker just because he could. You know, when Luka gets to that stage, let me know. Now, I'm just saying.
He won't.
No, but I'm dead. But the elements, the technical elements of the game are bird-like. There is no question.
If Dallas beats the Clippers and beats them handily, let's say they beat them 3-1 here.
Yeah.
Like, are we starting to put Luka now in the discussion of, hey, maybe he is a top 3 player in the league this early, this young?
No, that discussion started last year.
Yeah.
Oh no, he said he's going to be in any discussion of that nature if this continues on this course. Yeah, he would definitely be.
Because the winning to me, listen, you can put up all the numbers you want, but until you win at a high level,
yeah,
you're kind of just another all-star. But when you start taking a team that has no right getting deep into the playoffs, and if you can do that and beat the Clippers, and obviously then, I mean, on it they get Utah probably, maybe Utah or Memphis. I mean, Ja's got to go for 50, 43 or 47 wasn't enough. He needs to go for 50 evidently for Memphis to beat Utah with Donovan Mitchell. But that would be the next step for Luka. And why can't he get past? Listen, who's your money on, Utah or Luka? It might be on Dallas.
Yeah, well, because we've been posing the question, not out of disrespect, but out of logic and experience. How good is Utah really? You know, based on the regular season was wonderful. Last night they were the team that we've seen. They were 19 for 39 on threes, and that's who they have been all year. And weren't necessarily in game 1, but they were in game 2. And if they're gonna get back to their normal selves, how about as an aside? This is how about finishing 1-2 in 6-man award?
Very cool.
That blows my mind. That hasn't gotten enough. That's incredible. They were 1-2 in 6-man.
Yeah, I love how Joe Ingles gave Jordan Clarkson the award, and you could just tell, like most guys, and Joe Ingles a little bit older, mature, whatnot.
And he's an Aussie. He's a good bloke.
Yes, he is. He is, and you can see it on his face when
he's an Aussie
to Clarkson. And Jordan Clarkson's been tremendous this year. I mean, really good.
Good on you, mate. That's what he said, I'm sure.
Yeah. All right, so we got, Dallas looking to stick a fork in the Clippers here soon. Yeah. The Utah-Memphis one's been very, very entertaining.
It's going to continue to be, and if Memphis doesn't, they might go. I think Utah will assert itself finally. There's a reason why they were 1 and Memphis was 8, and Memphis came in hot. We know that they had won 8 out of 9 coming in, and they got that or encompassing game 1, and they're going to put up a good fight. But I don't think they'll go longer than 6. I would. Thanks.
How upset are you that Chris Paul is hurt yet again?
It takes the fun out if he's not. I mean, it's predictable almost. And sadly, it's totally predictable, and it's so sad because it takes the fun out of it for us. First of all, it diminishes Phoenix's chances, but for the neutrals, that's just as a fan, I was looking forward to a good long knockdown drag out, and I now for up to about 8 minutes to go, they looked like they were going to survive it because Cameron Payne was having the game of his life. That was a seminal moment in the NBA, was it not? At that moment?
Yeah, I mean, he's come from, this guy that was picked higher than anybody thought he'd be in the draft, didn't live up to expectations, looked like he was going to be out of the league, and now has come back and delivered.
He was tremendous, and he had that big bucket at the end of the third quarter, right? And he was gone. But then finally the Lakers, there's a lot we can take away from that. Of course, we know Anthony Davis, the whole narrative, he completely lived up to it. He made a profit out of. I'd love to run the clip from LeBron right now. Remember what LeBron said? That the history has of when he's down, I'm paraphrasing, but when Anthony Davis has a stinker, he always comes back strong. Well, there's Exhibit A. Okay, so he made a profit out of LeBron, and Dennis Schroeder had a terrific game to keep him alive. But when and I'm not diminishing with Anthony Davis, they had 34, 10, it was 7, 3 blocks. It was tremendous. But when that game was on the line, it was the king who said, "Okay, I'm here now. I will show you how it's done." And if you just looked at the box score and didn't see the game, you wouldn't understand the impact that he had on the game.
Right.
Or the
23, 24
timeliness of his contribution, or the difficulty of those shots. He made one shot that I say had a degree of difficulty of Simone Biles, doing the Lukashenko or whatever that thing is, Yurkachenko. But he made the big baskets, and what a beautiful assist, if you remember, from the corner on that bounce pass in to Drummond. And he was LeBron, it was a LeBron show in the end. So that was nice. Yeah, I wanted a good series, and but Paul sitting there watching with that look on his face was not good. It was sad.
No, not good at all. And again, now it's a shoulder. It's been a hamstring a couple times. It's something almost every year.
The Radner said it's always something.
It's always something. It is always something with Chris Paul. But I think with a healthy Chris Paul, this thing could go 7.
No, I was looking forward. I really thought it would, or a really great 6, epic 6, or go 7. And I'm disappointed in that. So I hope they can I hope they can get the magic wand waved over his shoulder, whatever. Yeah.
The other big surprise, I think, in the first round so far would be Milwaukee up 2-0 on Miami. It was a close game in the opener.
Yeah.
And man, did they right from the get-go blew them out in game 2. Are you bought into now Milwaukee being a title contender because their bench is so much stronger than it was the last couple of years? And they have a guy named Drew Holiday instead of Eric Bledsoe.
Keeping, in your mind that you don't want to overreact ever to anyone, but I think I have been thinking in the terms of, all right, if they're going to, this is what they can be. And are they going to be the best of themselves, which they haven't been in the playoffs the last 2 years. So Holiday makes a difference. There's no question Holiday makes a difference. And I think they're a bigger threat to the Nets than Philly by degrees.
Yeah. And
I'm not putting Philly down. I'm elevating them both to a good status, but I do think that the Milwaukee I've seen, I would give a better chance than Philly.
Yeah, I love what our former guest Jan Horst has done with that second unit.
Mm-hmm.
They come in now and they've got some weapons.
Yeah.
And they never really have that. And again, obviously, Holiday from Bledsoe is an upgrade on both ends of the court, really. Because I think
you have to accept that Middleton is a star. And
he's got to be a star. He's got to.
That was a big time play in the game 1.
Yep.
And and he's there. Of course, Hubie was rhapsodizing about him having the whole game. At the long range game, the mid range game.
Yep.
The get to the hoop game. And that's true. So that's nice. It's good. No, so they're. I don't want to bury Miami, but Jimmy Butler had better, as Cher, I'm quoting all these celebrities, as Cher said, snap out of it. My God.
Well, their chemistry doesn't look like what it was a year ago. Honestly, like last year.
It was peak at this time last year.
Right.
Yeah. Bam was exploding on people's face every night. A hero couldn't miss.
No.
Yeah, you're right. There was something better going on. Can they regroup? I'm going to be curious, to see. But
I think they can maybe get one of two at home and turn into a little bit of a series. But listen, the best series might be the New York Knickerbockers and the Atlanta Hawks. Like in terms of everything, right? Like the drama, the fans. Obviously, at the Garden, the Knicks coming out strong and winning a game for the first time in the Garden in what, almost 10 years?
Yeah, I think it's 13.
Yeah. Julius Randle didn't even play well. He didn't make a field goal in the first half. Julius
Randle is not shooting well.
Right.
We know this. I got the numbers here. They are. He's 11 for 39. I think that would classify as not shooting well.
Yeah.
However, he is still helping the team.
Yeah.
He's had 12 rebounds in each of those 2 games still. He's defending because he's become a defender. He's had 4 assists in each 2 games. If you recall the beautiful pass he made on an entry pass, dish off to Gibson for a big dunk down the stretch, which any guard in the league would have been proud of that pass. He's helped. So we don't want to fall into the trap of only judging him by the scoring. It'll come, I would think. he's just proven himself over the long haul this year to be a terrific player. Yeah, just they're where they are despite him shooting 11 for 39. And I think they have to bank that that's going to end, that it's going to get better. But you're right. The story, the crowd itself is a story. Yeah. The idea that basketball, and we wonder what it would be like when people were saying all year, oh, if only the Knicks could have a crowd, this team has got, it's got people's imagination. Well, guess what? They're getting a crowd and it's all coming true. And I'll say this about the New York fans. During this long, ugly drought, they never stopped coming. Right. People were still anting up the money. I mean, they were coming. They never gave up, or they never, voted with their feet. They shut out the Bucks. They kept coming, and now they're getting a reward. And after the game, the scene after them, it's like they won Game 7 of the World Series. Of the finals, and that's great. I'm one of these people that yes, I'm East Coast centric. That I believe it's good for everybody if New York's good, because New York's good gives you a polarizer. Everybody gets involved. People love them or hate them. And if they want to hate them, that's fine. They'll show up and hate them. But I think it's good for to have the Knicks as a viable team in the NBA.
How about Derrick Rose?
Oh,
kind of resurgence of Derrick Rose has been so cool to watch. And,
it is.
A kid that everything came to him so quickly. MVP, he was going to be. I mean, listen, people would have thought Derrick Rose would have won multiple MVPs. He was potentially been the best player in the NBA.
I've spoken about this often, and I don't mind speaking about it. I love it. When I first saw him in Memphis in person, I said, "Oh my God!" He did two things that at a level I had never seen. There's some strange burst he had at the end of his drive where he had they talk about late life on the fastball in baseball. He had late explosions somehow and you had to see it in person to believe it. The other thing was an ability to move laterally in the air, right, from left to right and start off the left side of the basket in the air, wind up scoring in a way that I had never seen anybody do to that level. And I said, in order to appreciate Derrick Rose, you really have to see him in person. Yeah. You can't get the feel, the whoosh, you got to see it in person. He was special. I wouldn't have said that about more than 2 or 3 people ever that I ever saw. And in all the years I've seen it, I think I like to brag. I've seen every great player the last 60 years, and a half. And this was different. So anyway, for him to lose that due to the recurrence of injuries was so sad. And then floundering around, different, and then really getting dumped in the Knicks doorstep by the Pistons, right? I mean, and look what he's doing, and he's really become the second most important player. And they don't win.
Well, especially at the point guard spot where they've really struggled.
Oh yeah, with this Peyton thing of ceremonial starting, and then he gets the hook of it. Oh no, Rose has been. It's quite. So it's a treat to watch him play.
Hi guys, Cedric Maxwell here. I want to take a minute to tell you about Marigold Medical. I'm used to keeping my body in great shape, but with arthritis, even the most simple everyday tasks became unbearable. As soon as I called Marigold Medical, I knew I was in good hands. No drugs, no surgery, just an experienced team of caring professionals that wanted to get me back to doing the things I love. Make the call to Marigold Medical and get back to pain-free life.
All right, so 2 other Eastern Conference storylines, off the court storylines. I want to talk to you. We'll start with the fan who dumped popcorn on Russell Westbrook. First of all, not a smart move to mess with Russell Westbrook. If you're going to dump popcorn on somebody, don't dump it on Rui Hachimura. He's like the nicest kid in the world. He's not going to, he'd probably smile at the fan. Yeah. But you're dumping on Russell Westbrook. Bad move, because Russ would have went up there and kicked this fan's ass. We know that. If he could have gotten there, he would have gotten there, and that fan, it wouldn't have been pretty. What do you do with these situations, Bob? If you're the arena or the NBA, do you ban this guy ever from attending an NBA game again?
It's been done, right? Or at least Utah, right? Yep. Is that, wouldn't bother me to do that, or a 5-year probation or something, something serious. Yeah, you can't, because popcorn is harmless. Coffee isn't. For example, well, when they wouldn't have coffee, but the humiliation of a liquid would have been, would have been so demeaning and so, insulting and so despicable. Popcorn's harmless, but it's the idea of it being, oh no, there's no defense for it, none. People wanting to get, it's just, what can I say? It's so self-evident that this is a reprehensible thing.
And it just like gets worse and worse, I think, as the years, so many fans have a feeling of like entitlement.
Oh, I know.
I paid my money. I can say and do whatever I want. And that gets me into my next topic, which was Kyrie Irving.
Oh, boy.
And he was asked about coming back. He's returned to Boston for the first time with fans since he left and went to Brooklyn. And his quote was, I'll read it.
Yeah,
it's not my first time being an opponent in Boston. I'm just looking forward to competing with my teammates, and hopefully we can keep it strictly basketball. There's no belligerence or racism going on, subtle racism, or people yelling shit from the crowd. I'm not the only one who can attest to this, but it is when he was asked about encountering racism prior in Boston. It is what it is. The whole world knows it.
Well, it's opening a wound in a city that has had to deal with a certain reality, number one, and then an attempt, I believe, as a transplant resident of almost 60 years, to dig out from this, to rectify itself, to be better. But it's not perfect, of course not. And I'll say, number one, I don't think this is restricted to Boston. Number two, but he opened a wound, and he did it. It's a taunt to the crowd. He knows it's going to be hostile due to the nature of his departure, which was not good, and so he fans the flame. This is a big story in Boston, and I think it's well presented by my former colleague. Well, I shouldn't say former, because I still do write a little bit for the Boston Globe. Gary Washburn held it on page 1 of the Globe today. Now, for people who happen to be an African-American, Gary Washburn, he's an NBA writer of long standing. The comments added an unfortunate element to this already disheartening series. Irving suggested he's heard racist remarks from fans in Boston before and did not want to be a target. He painted Boston fans, at least some, as out of control or belligerent, willing to scream any remark to pierce the psyches of opposing players, especially ones like Irving, a former Celtic who reneged on a promise to re-sign with the club. Get this one. Friday is going to serve as a critical moment for the perception of Boston and its progress with race relations. Whether it's fair or not, the national sports landscape will judge Boston on its behavior on Friday. It's a monumental stage for the city, a stage it didn't ask for. That is articulating it as well as anybody could. He has put Boston on notice, as I said. It is patently unfair on his part to do this, knowing who he is, and this is Kyrie is an amazingly fascinating, endlessly complex person. And
but here's my take, Bob. Here's my take. Like, and Kendrick Perkins weighed in and said, I played here for 7.5 years. I came back as an opponent. I never heard anything racist from any of the fans. Okay. There's a big difference between racist and fans yelling mean-spirited things. They yell them at whoever it is who comes into Boston. Now, Kyrie, it's a different level because of how he left Boston, that everybody thought, he was going to be here, and then he left. And then you add on the fact that obviously the Celtics have no chance against the Brooklyn Nets. So the fans are pissed off having to watch Kyrie beat their team. Obviously, if it gets to the point where it's racist, that's at a different level. That's crossing the line. We know that. But is it crossing the line, with some of these fans that are going to get on Kyrie Irving because they don't like him?
No, this is what it's going to be impossible to differentiate, and it's going to be interpreted by some people, as if living up to exactly what he said. That's going to, that there was that Boston is eternally racist, and they're eternally going to, well, it's I can, speaking as a white male it's so incredibly uncomfortable to be accused of racism when you know what's in your heart. And I've been accused of it from at times, including in a book, which was preposterous. By two guys I knew. One of them I considered to be a friend of, and it's ridiculous. But boy, what a frustrating thing it is. But now he's put the whole city on that defensive.
Yeah, you just want, again, and Brad Stevens was asked about it, and he said, listen, basically, obviously, this is something that the arena, everybody's got to be aware of. And if something happens, we'll take care of it, or hopefully we'll take care of it. But Kyrie never expressed anything to me while he was in Boston. And that's the thing. It's, he hasn't played here in front of fans yet since he left. So yeah, you're getting it on social media. And that's probably where Kyrie is kind of talking about this right now. And listen, I get it. Everybody gets it on social media. Social media is a disaster in some ways because people don't have to do it in person. You don't know who they are, a lot of these people.
Right. Oh, yeah.
But again, I feel like, yes, Kyrie, you're going to get some hurtful comments thrown your way because fans don't like you in Boston. But is that any different than anywhere you go, right? Around the country right now? No, it's at a heightened level in Boston.
And Kyrie, there is nobody like Kyrie.
Right.
Not only now, ever. There's no comparison of the total package, everything, the skill level, which is enormous, but the strange psyche, the willingness to engage in nonsense such as the earth isn't round and then laugh it off later on. He just wanted to make people think, oh, really? Okay. There's somebody, as I say, he's a psychiatrist's dream. I mean, he is.
Or a nightmare, because I don't know if you can figure it
out. But he would put, Benjamins in there'd be a lot of visits, so that's what, he's a psychiatrist's dream in that regard too. There's never been anything like him. So for him to be the guy to say this, of all people, it's that's the whole issue here. It's him. There's never been anybody like him. And this is going to be.
What do you think it's going to be like Friday night? Are Boston fans going to be more reserved because of this, or does it get to a different level?
I'm not confident that's going to happen. I think that the assholes are going to prevail. I mean, not prevail. They're going to manifest themselves and have him saying, "See, I told you." I'm afraid. I'm skeptical. I'm very worried about that. Tony Maserati tweeted, for people who don't know, he's a radio host in Boston who was a former writer, said the best thing would be total silence.
Right.
Ignore him completely. Well, it would. Well,
can't do that.
Don't hold your breath on that one, folks. It ain't going to happen.
Not going to happen.
It would be great to just ignore him. Do the version of the holding up the newspaper. When they announce the starting lineup, right? That one. But who did that first, by the way? I wonder. Anyway, that's a lot of questions of that nature I have about sports. Who's the first ones to do that? Who's the first ones? Who was the first pitcher to point to the sky when there was a pop-up? If you didn't know that there was a pop-up, now they all do it, right?
Right.
Who's the first person to slap palms after a missed free throw? That one drives me crazy.
I don't get
that.
Where
did that start? Who's doing? Somewhere, someone started it. Anyway,
I think it's a new book for you, Bob. It's a new book.
This is a whole great area of inquiry that I have.
Interesting questions that you don't think about a whole heck of a lot. That's for sure. I was thinking of going to the game Friday night, but honestly, to watch, if it were a competitive game, if I thought the Celtics would have had a chance, I would go. And are they going to have full crowd?
I'm not positive. I'm not even positive about that.
I don't know if they're having it or not. I thought they did increase, but I don't know if it's going to be, like the Canes game, it was full at the bottom and up top. They only sold probably 50% of maybe the seats up top. So I wonder if they'll do something similar in Boston. But
it's going to be a lot of eyes are going to be on what does happen
for the wrong reasons.
Yep.
That's the worst part for the Celtics is nobody cares about the series anymore. Now all they care about is what Kyrie's going to do or what the fans are going to do to Kyrie.
All about this. It's so sad. It's now part of it, okay, Boston, Boston has to answer to stuff. I cannot deny that. But I do think, I do honestly believe, as somebody who's lived there, I've seen it improve, but you're never going to erase. Hey, just look at national politics.
City.
Look at national politics and then tell me that we have reason to think that everything's hunky-dory. It's not. So,
I'm going to ask you this every week. Who is your favorite to win the NBA title today?
It is the Brooklyn Nets.
Wow.
I just
flipped.
They may be an unstoppable force. They may be. Now, I know they're going to have to play we say this. My favorite saying, everything's true till it's not true. Okay. That's why I don't care if you got a 3% chance, that means there's a chance. All right. Now about something. Okay. No team in my memory or in my awareness has ever just bombarded their way to the NBA title. Right. They've always had to D up at some point. And many of the champions were built around it. The original Celtics with Russell, the Knicks of the 70s, the Bulls. I mean, the Bulls, without the defense of Pippen, Rodman, and Michael, they were a tremendous defensive team. Okay. And the Warriors could D up even. The Nets could they be the one to break the mold and keep winning 140 to 127, 131, 119 every night on their way to the title? Until it doesn't happen, I'm saying it could happen.
What's a team, Bob? What's the most high-powered trio? Like at the end of the day, all right, Kevin Durant's going to go down as a top 10 player, in my opinion, I think, ever to play the game. Okay. Kyrie and Harden will go down as top, I don't know, will they go down as top 50 players?
It depends on the length of the career, particularly, and whether Kyrie gets through a career without getting hurt or missing, half the games due to personal reasons.
I mean, they can both go down as
Harden is going to be a fascinating historical artifact.
I mean, they're all, listen, the three of them are clearly top, I think, 10 talent. Kyrie, it's so hard to say because of Kyrie when you put everything in there. But they're all, if you drafted up, I think if you drafted right now, Kyrie would go somewhere around the top 10. He'd go around the top 10.
His talent is unquestioned.
So, like those three, I guess what I'm trying to get at is, give me the most talented trio you've ever seen on one team.
Is it possible it was Bird, Parrish, and McHale? Certainly, you have to throw them into discussion.
I mean, where's Robert Parrish sit among?
In my opinion, I think he's a top 10 center. He's certainly no worse than a top 12 center. Bob Parrish is damn good.
He was. Well, he could run the court.
Good.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at the remarkable consistency of his shooting.
Yeah.
Remarkable. Take a look, somebody. Go to basketballreference.com and you will be reminded about what an amazingly consistent shooter he was. And the only reason his points ever went down was shots attempted, which that was only that. He was relentlessly between, 51 and 57% for like 12 years in a row. Anyway, he's a great player and block shots, run the floor. Okay.
I mean, you go step, you can go. KD,
who's the third guy we can throw in with set this? The Splash Brothers and what? Who's third? Draymond?
It was KD when he was there. KD
that year. Play. Yeah, that group. They're certainly that group is clearly a nominee.
They won.
Clearly a nominee.
Right.
And it may be the winner. And still, right. I think that's. Other than that, the Lakers, Kareem, Michael, and actually Kareem, Magic, and Worthy. Be damn good. But Kareem was over the, past the mountaintop. He's still very good.
Yeah.
But that wasn't vintage Kareem either. It was vintage Michael, and it was vintage Michael. I keep saying Michael. It was vintage Magic, and it was vintage Worthy. And Worthy's a tremendous player. Worthy's a top 50, 60 player.
Yeah, I would say 50. I would give Worthy top 50.
So that's enough. But I do think that Curry, Thompson, Durant's hard to beat.
I mean, a lot of people might say, think about this. I wouldn't do it, but KG, Pierce, and Ray Allen.
Yeah, that you got to throw them in there.
Right?
They're certainly they're getting an Oscar nomination. They're being a nomination. There's no question.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to hear people's responses on what is the best trio that ever played together.
You know, what was intended to be, but didn't happen, was the first original one, which was Chamberlain, Weston, Baylor.
Wow.
And Wilt, the first year, was hurt a lot. He was around for the playoffs when they lost that famous balloon game, Game 7. But he missed games during the season. The second year, Elgin was too old now. They caught Elgin at the end with too old and too many injuries. And they lost to the Knicks in Game 7 and 70. But West was at his peak still, but the other two weren't. So they didn't hit it.
That's where you look at KD, Harden.
They didn't hit it at the right juncture.
Kyrie, they're all kind of in their prime. I mean, he certainly looks like he's in his prime when he's healthy.
Yeah, right. When that's the other thing. You're right about Durant. About Garnett, Pearson, Allen. They all had plenty left in the tank that first 2 years. I mean, in 2009, KG got hurt.
Right.
And they lost.
Yep.
They lost. In 2010, Perkins got hurt in Game 6. And, and Rasheed Wallace, they didn't show up for him in Game 7. And, but they came very close to winning 3 in a row, believe me.
Yeah, they did. All right. Well, listen, we will have plenty more to talk about here next week.
Yeah.
I think we'll
do you agree with me that the playoffs are off to a great start?
Oh,
There's a lot of enticing things going on. I didn't even get to one of my little favorite topics. We're going to next see how it goes. The boxcar numbers that some people are putting up,
crazy.
Not just the Jokic's, the Morants. Oh, he had 47. Oh, what the hell? How about this one? This must be frustrating for the BU. Seriously. If you're Damian Lillard and you're playing out there in the left coast, way up in the tippy top of the left coast, your games start at midnight in the East. His 2 games, well, nobody's looking at 34 and 42.
Nobody's talking about it. Nobody's
talking about him.
I know. That's been the story of his career for the most part. Whether it was college at Weber State, most of his time in Portland, obviously last year in the bubble, people started talking about him and he made the All-Star team this year. But he's been overshadowed and continues to be overshadowed, especially in the Western Conference. So, all right, well, listen, make sure you subscribe, you leave us any reviews, and come back every single week on the Ryan and Goodman podcast. Thanks for joining us.